That's good. Put your hand on the book. Raise your right hand. Rex Hogue, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Well, I don't think we have time for me to tell the whole truth.
Okay, good enough. My name is Richard Bennett, and to my left is Rex Hogue, and he is an estate planning lawyer. Is that correct?
Correct
phrase? And I've known Rex for some 40 plus years, since high school, and this is the show Vocations. Welcome to Vocations, Rex. Thanks for being here. Rex is originally from Irving, Texas. He graduated MacArthur High School in 1977, where he played tuba in the band for 4 years. He later attended Regent University, Pat Robertson's college, in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and graduated in 1992 with a doctorate in jurisprudence. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
Now, one question I have for you. As a lawyer, I don't know anything about lawyers, you know, but since you got a doctorate, why don't you refer to yourself as a doctor?
Traditionally, lawyers just don't have people refer to them as lawyers. The only exception is if they're teaching at a university.
Oh, okay. Well, now how far is Virginia Beach from Washington, D.C.?
It's about 200 miles.
Have you ever met Pat Robertson?
Yes, several times.
Okay. Ever take a bus trip to D.C. to see how things operate?
We didn't take a bus trip. My wife and I went up there Easter weekend, my third year, shortly after we got married, and that's the only time I've been to D.C. It was supposed to be nice that weekend. Instead, it was cold.
Rex is married to Dottie Malpass. Is that correct pronunciation?
Yes.
And they have 3 children, David, Laura, and Stephen. He graduated from Texas Tech in 1982. Forgot to mention that. And he played tuba in the Goin' Band from Raiderland. Is that the name of it?
Yes.
The Goin' Band from Raiderland?
Yes.
And we are currently at the offices of Haiman Hogue in Frisco, Texas, and where he practices not real estate, estate planning law. Now for the tough questions. Rex, what made you decide to become a lawyer?
Well, I'd graduated from college and I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. One night I was praying and I said to the Lord, I will go anywhere, I will do anything. And to my complete shock, the next morning when I woke up, the first thing that popped into my head was, you ought to go to law school. And it kept coming back to me. I couldn't get it out of my head. And the funny thing is, that night I prayed, I didn't like lawyers. The next day I woke up and wanted to be one. And eventually I became convinced that's what God wanted me to do. And became more convinced when all the stuff that we don't have time to share took place. It showed me I couldn't do this without the Lord.
So you didn't have any trouble, you didn't have any doubts after that? You had no doubts?
Never had any doubts. I had times that I wondered if I had missed it, but
Did you ever wonder if you were, now law school I imagine is pretty hard.
it takes a lot to get through law school. I've said anybody could do a day of law school. Most people could do a week, but doing 3 years, not very many people could do.
No. Could you work while you went to law school?
Yes, had no choice in the matter. because I was on financial aid. The school required that we work in addition to getting financial aid.
Oh, okay. You're the first lawyer in your family. You're not from a family of lawyers.
Correct.
You know, usually, or a lot of times the kids will follow in their father's footsteps. What did your dad do?
Well, my dad sold life insurance, and then he had a phone contracting company, and then he had a vending company.
Okay.
So he did.
He got out.
He did several things.
How long have you practiced law?
A little over 25 years.
Do you have any strange or funny stories to tell about your practice?
Well, I'll tell you about my very first day working in a law office. I'd finished my first year of law school, and I went to work for a firm as a clerk. And the first day, this firm had two attorneys. I had not met one of them. She was in court that morning when I got there. She came back after the Justice of the Peace, whose court she was in, threatened to throw her in jail.
Ooh.
And sent me off to the court to handle the matter. And I didn't even think I had the authority to be there. And I didn't know anything about it. The judge was upset that our firm didn't even think enough of the court to send a lawyer. They just sent a clerk. Without realizing our boss was out somewhere else, and we only had two lawyers in the firm. So I didn't really even know anything about the case, but I knew that our client was coming in at noon and that we could get him over to the court that afternoon. So I promised the judge that he and I would be there at, I don't remember whether it was 1 or 1:30. We go to the court, and what happened is our guy was in the Marine Reserves. He had been on his 2-week duty. His bank had inadvertently closed his bank account, and checks started bouncing everywhere. And he couldn't do anything about it because he hadn't even heard about it until he got back. But by the time he got back, he had a bench warrant out for his arrest. So by that time, I'd heard the story, and I thought, well, we've got a pretty good defense. It wasn't even his fault. We go over to the court, and the judge starts questioning us, and we kind of get the story out. And then the judge says, I want y'all to come back to my chambers. And I thought, this is not good. Bad things happen in judges' chambers as far as I was concerned. The two of us go back there. We're sitting at his great big 7-foot wide desk and happened to see on the corner of the desk these bumper stickers that said, "Re-elect Judge so-and-so, Republican."
Oh, okay.
And I was looking at him, and he looks at me and he says, if I gave you a stack of those bumper stickers, would you take them back over to your office and have people put them on their cars? And I said, Your Honor, this is my first day at this firm, and what I figured out is I am the only Republican who works there. And I still have no idea what he's going to do with our case. So he says, what's your boss's phone number? I gave it to him, and he calls, and I'm thinking, I'm dead. I mean, he's going to throw me in jail.
You're fired.
And I'm going to get fired. So he calls my boss and gets him on the phone. My boss's name was George, and he says, George, this is Judge so-and-so. I've got your law clerk here, and I asked him if he would bring bumper stickers over for y'all to put on your cars for my re-election campaign, and he tells me he's the only Republican in your office. And now I'm thinking, I know I'm fired. And George, cool as a cucumber, says, Judge, what are you doing with our client?
Okay.
And the judge says, well,
Depends.
if all these charges are paid, I'm going to let him go. George says, send those bumper stickers right over.
Pretty good for George.
So I went back over. I had no idea what to expect when I got back. But I came back as the conquering hero. He never said one word about the political thing at all. It never was a topic that was discussed. It really didn't matter with our job. But I'll just say that our office was not real shy about expressing their political beliefs. And I'd already had 3 or 4 hours to hear them. So it was funny.
Oh, man. Oh, you're the lone guy. Tell us about your job.
Well, I'm primarily a planner. I help people plan their estates. We do tax planning, business planning, asset protection planning, and special needs planning. Those are all my areas. Our firm does estate administration, probate. One of the things that I do is I'll do court modifications of trusts. That's one of the few things I go to court for these days. And then we also do Medicaid and VA planning. And by the way, we also do guardianship. So what we do primarily is help people plan for that time when they can no longer sign their name. And from a planning standpoint, I really plan for three things. I refer to what I call the dragons of planning: administration issues, tax issues, and creditor issues. And I tell people that on administration, we're planning for that day when a person cannot sign their name and things need to happen based on their signature. From a tax standpoint, our job is to help clients minimize their taxes to the lowest legal level and not pay any more in tax than they have to. And then from a creditor standpoint, really there's three aspects of it. The very first is to help our clients stay out of court. Then if they do have to go to court, our objective is to design things in such a way that they win. And then our third job is, if that fails, to see to it that they don't lose assets.
Okay, well, that's pretty thorough. Rex is my lawyer, by the way, and he did a planning for us. We had a trust fund set up, and he was very good about walking us through, what to do and what not to do, and he giving us options and helping us make the best choices, and very thorough and clear, and brought lawyer talk down to my level. So thanks for that.
I try to do that.
Who are your clients?
Well, for the most part, they're going to be middle class. Most of them are couples, middle class or above. They're people who have generally at least some assets. Now, we do plans for really low-end people who don't have much. I'm just not involved with that level of the planning. That's all handled by someone else who, it's not worth my time to be involved in those cases because we have too much of the other stuff for me to do. They run the gamut from people with still minor children, some with adult children. Some of our clients are still working, some are retired. Some of them are that sandwich generation. They're taking care of an older parent and they still have kids they're taking care of. And that's probably our ideal client right there, is somebody in that sandwich generation that they need to make things as smooth as possible in dealing with their parents, and they still have their own kids to take care of and plan for.
I didn't have many encounters with lawyers before I met Rex. I can remember one when I was about 23. I was working as a clerk in a store after school, and this guy comes in and we start talking, back and forth, and I said, well, what do you do? He says, I'm a lawyer. And he goes, if you want to sue anybody, here's my card. And so I said, well, what would I want to sue anybody about, He goes, you can sue anybody for anything, for any reason, anytime. Here's my card. And it sounded like he didn't care. He didn't care if he was going to ruin somebody's life. So I go, that was my first impression of what an ambulance chaser is all about.
Yeah, there are sadly some lawyers like that out there. Prior to my third year of law school, my wife and I, we were engaged at the time, were involved in a car accident where somebody hit me. It was her fault. She was doing 75 miles an hour. Well, I worked for personal injury lawyers going through law school. And when we took on a case, we sent our prospective client to our doctor. We paid the bill, and we told our doctor, we want to know, are they really hurt? Can we show that this came from an incident that they're claiming, and can we prove it? And if we couldn't do all that, we would tell the people either you don't really have a case, or we're not the right firm for you. By the time we sent out a demand letter, we had already proven our case. We already knew we were going to win. The only question was how. How much are we going to win? Well, we're in this car accident, and I think about 2 weeks after, it was a Friday, 2 weeks after that accident, which was on a Saturday, so I guess 13 days later, I get a letter from this lawyer saying, you were involved in an accident with my client, you're at fault, and you need to contact us and get this settled or we're going to sue you.
Oh.
And it was one of the worst weekends of my life. I'm about to start my third year of law school. I work for a personal injury lawyer. Hey, I'd actually sent out some of those kind of letters. And I thought, I've got a police report that says she was at fault. Every witness says she was 100% at fault. And I was the one hurt worse in the accident. Well, Monday morning was the first day of my third year of law school. I skipped my first class to take that letter to the guy I was working for.
Okay.
I thought that was a great excuse, going to see your lawyer for missing a law school class, but my professor didn't think so.
Oh.
But anyway, I walk in, I show the letter to my boss. He looks at it and he goes, oh, I know this guy. And at the moment I've forgotten the gentleman's name. But my boss picked up the phone, he called him, he says, hey, Joe, this is Gary. You got a case that slipped in under the wire on you. He then lays out what happened. And he said, now, Joe, my client is a brilliant third-year law student. And I, at that point, thought, you had me confused with one of my classmates who works there. And he's planning to go into litigation, and I don't think you want to give him experience on this kind of a case. The other guy says, Gary, we're done with this. And just like that, it was over. And I thought, I worried about this all weekend. My boss makes one call, and the case is done.
Wow.
So we got to talking, and he said, you know, there's a lot of lawyers out there who send out letters like that. He hadn't even seen the police report. He hadn't done any research. He sent the letter in hopes that he's going to get a quick settlement. And I refer to that as legal terrorism.
Yeah.
It's, to me, not really practicing law. It's absurd and ridiculous. But that's how the guy practiced. And we didn't practice that way, so it seemed very weird to me. But those guys, unfortunately, are out there. And I think they're bad both for the public and our profession. You know, they make the rest of us look bad.
Can you sue a lawyer for that?
Well, you would have to prove that he brought a totally baseless claim. If he had continued to pursue it with no evidence, yes. But it's difficult.
It's hard to do.
There's a lot of lawyers suing lawyers these days, but it's hard to do.